A huge shout out to the overthinkers.
An overthinker. He watches the show.
To the overthinkers, shout out Bafetu.
All about Bafetu, this is Parker, yeah? Thank you, overthinkers.
Keep inspiring the next generation.
Shout out to the overthinkers. Tando Pela. Much love.
To my overthinkers, mamela ubuchopho ngeke buphume buyakhula nizinja nikhokho yazini as overthink siya overachieve.
I'm stealing that. I've stolen that one. I've stolen it.
Okay. Welcome, everybody, to the Overthinking Football Show. My name is George Mokwena. I, of course, am your host on the show where we speak about all things local football, African football, sometimes even overseas. The show is normally on every Monday to Thursday at 7 p.m. And also on Fridays, tomorrow is going to be a 12:30 show with my breadwinners, my members, the chief overthinkers, that form part of a WhatsApp group that I have offline, where we delve even deeper into these things. If you're joining for the first time, welcome to an amazing space where we can have open discussions, and it's really about hearing from you. I'm not a former player, I'm not an analyst, I'm not Robert Marawa, I'm not any of those people. I'm just a guy that really loves football, and I want to talk football with you guys. If you have watched before and you're wondering where the voices come from, you have to be following me live while I'm here on TikTok, so that you can call in by using the multi-guest feature. There'll come a time where I'll say I'm going to open it up and let you guys in, and you guys can add your voices to the show by pressing a button at the bottom of your screen that says multi-guest. It's got a pink figure hugging a blue figure, and then you click on it, you request, I let you in, you form part of my panel, you speak to me, everybody hears you, and we have a very, very good conversation just like that. And also, guys, can we please try get to 20,000 likes? Can we please try get to 20,000 likes? That's all I want. 20,000 likes, tap the screen. It's free. Click on that thing as many times as you want. It's not going to cost you anything. And if we can get to 20,000, I think that'll be amazing. It helps me rank and all of those things. Now, on to the topics for tonight. First things first, we're going to speak about this man right here, Tate Motsepe, Dr. Motsepe, Dr. Patrice Motsepe, owner of Mamelodi Sundowns, the family team, and then also the man who's behind the Motsepe Foundation, whose surname is in the NFD and is in the ABC Motsepe League as well. Those are both of, he funds those in terms of sponsorship, and is also the president of CAF. So in his stint as president of CAF, he has done a lot of things like restructuring television deals, restructuring all types of those things. We're going to speak about something he's going to do now, which I'm going to get into just now. But also, secondly, I'm bringing back open discussions, guys. Open discussions. So get your topics ready. The last hour is going to be an open discussion where you come up with the topic. I will then facilitate one of the panels, and we'll speak about what you guys want to speak about there in the comments. So get your topics ready. Last hour of the show. First hour of the show, Motsepe, Tate Motsepe, Dr. Motsepe is apparently allegedly about to buy a Multichoice, and he's going to do that in collaboration with Canal Plus, a French broadcaster that already owns 31% of Multichoice. Now, the reason why Tate Motsepe is coming in on this deal, or is alleged to be coming in on this deal, is that because this Canal Plus is a French company. So if you're a French company, you're not allowed to have more than 20% ownership or vote, 20% of a board or 20% of voting rights within a broadcaster that's inside the country. So they already have that, and they need somebody to come in and be proxy. So they're going to start a new company that's going to have Tate Motsepe, a holding company, that's going to have Tate Motsepe as the majority shareholder, Canal Plus as the secondary shareholder, buy out those shares, and they skirt those problems. Now, there's a lot of things that go with this. Multichoice, of course, owns Supersport, runs Supersport, runs South African sport, an African sport in a sense, but also Bomzansi Magic, Bomochalab, and all of those things will now fall under the control of Tate Motsepe, which is very interesting because with Multichoice comes Supersport, for example. Supersport United is owned by a Multichoice, so it's either they'll have to divest from it or they'll have to figure out a way around it. And then the other question becomes, if Tate Motsepe becomes the majority shareholder of this company that's going to own Multichoice, that means he can't be CAF president because of hypocrisy. So, well, not hypocrisy. It's not hypocrisy. It's a conflict of interest. Why did I say that? It's a conflict of interest. So he is not going to be able to be CAF president while also owning this majority stake in a broadcaster, which is going to be very, very interesting on that side. But then lastly, Dr. Khoza is retiring, allegedly as well. He's going to be retiring in the next few years. So if this deal does go through, it means the PSL and their deal is going to be renegotiated by people who are going to be come with Untate Motsepe. And already, as I've stated, he already runs the Motsepe Foundation. He already runs the Motsepe League, ABC Motsepe League. What happens when he comes in as the broadcaster, as Supersport in this case? What type of deal can be fashioned from that? And will the PSL be able to negotiate in good faith in that? And also, I forgot, lastly, he owns Mamelodi Sundowns. He owns Boland. He'll be owning Supersport. He'll be owning the Blue Bulls. What does this mean for football, guys? What does this mean for football in the country? For me, very shortly before I open it up, firstly, you'd say competition is a bad thing, or not having somebody who's got so much control is a bad thing because they run our football. And normally you wouldn't want that inside your football. You wouldn't want that inside your structures, because that means that one person holds all of the cards. SAFA, PSL, First Division, the rights to the TV, all of that will fall under his control, right? So normally you wouldn't want that. But if Aliko Dangote, if Johan Rupert and all of those other billionaires are not stepping in, who better than Motsepe? Because, the other hand, he's shown that he's good to our football. He's been good to Mamelodi Sundowns. He's been good to the league. He's been good to CAF. So does that stop? Would that be a bad thing for him to control the broadcaster? Maybe we get better deals, we get better coverage, we get better marketing, we get better of everything with him there. So that is the fun question, or the interesting question when it comes to this Motsepe deal. Guys, I'm going to open it up. Please remember that you have to be following me on TikTok in order to join the multi-guest and add your voice to the show while we are live. So let me just open it up and then I'll let you guys in. You have to be following me. So there's a button at the bottom of the screen that should appear now that says multi-guest. Feel free to jump in and have this discussion with me about what this means for our football, what this means for the broadcaster, what it means for sports, and what it means for the future of CAF and all those things if Ntate Motsepe lets go. So let's see who's here. Kumo, how are you, my brother?
Sharp, wena.
I'm good. I could say, but I think I don't know if you want to be called Malume Kumo as well, or Rangwani Kumo. Who knows? What? But welcome.
Hi, Kumo Lesandawana is fine. Thank you. Yes, I'm Malum. I am Mokalaven.
Umukhala beko showing in. But anyway, cool. So, Kumo, tell me, what do you think about this deal?
First of all, South African should say, thank you, Motsepe, thank you, Papa, thank you, Messiah, thank you, our Father. No, man, first of all, let me correct this, right?
Yes.
Motsepe Foundation, he doesn't run it, his wife does. Sundowns, run like his son told, you know? That is why when he became CAF president, he had to relinquish those titles and duties.
He's a board member,
obviously,
and it's the family
he's the
team.
mastermind behind it, right? The
Yeah.
brainchild. Gets a high one. But I give him, in order for him to actually occupy those positions, he had to resign from them for a common CAF. Man, this guy is great, man. In terms of like economic power, no one saw this coming, man. And I'm glad it's someone who has proved to us in the past where he has passion for football and for South Africans and Africa as a whole. So it shows you are being led. How many times will be in sports and that French company that CAF is still be in sports, ne?
Be in sports.
There is thing, yeah, I agree, you know, those dubious multiple year rights that they didn't ever exploit. At least the Motsepe, when he came to CAF, if he made money, And a lot of people, I can remember the rights that CAF, they own a New World TV or New World Media.
Yes.
Did you know who Sanlam, his company was the loan guarantor, meaning they had to ask money from him to get those rights away from SuperSport and SABC. But the other thing happened, as he's saying, if New World TV or New World Media can't pay back the money, there's a possibility, I don't know how their contract is structured and their terms, there's a possibility to they might also absorb New World Media. Then he's gonna have complete autonomy. This is what you call a more hostile takeover. Bruh, capitalism at its best. More we are being led, guys. What? Mara? Yeah.
So no,
No,
but
you
come
are
on, tell me what does this mean? Let's break it down. I think people might not get it all the way, guys. Multichoice is SuperSport basically. They own SuperSport. They run SuperSport, and then Multichoice obviously is the broadcaster that gives you DSTV and a lot of other channels and sports things across Africa. What does this move mean for African football?
African football, okay, sharp. Yeah, novel, like we can't lie and say, he's not Sundowns. He is Sundowns. He's the Prince of Sundowns. But I get he resigned. I get, and you also forget where he's got a stake of tax. He's got also stake to Tigers. Mara utswile mo tsona, mara intimidate here. So as of now, the only position that he occupies the chairman African Rainbow. I don't know who he's gonna buy the thing African Rainbow Minerals or African Rainbow Capitals. But I can't currently le carefully FIFA. So there's no conflict of interest. So if this deal proves out, he did mention like he only wants one term for CAF. So if this deal proves sharp, then I'm assuming he has to resign because he can occupy both oppositions. Mara, and he's smart. Like, I don't know if a lot of people know this. Like, okay, he doesn't take a salary.
Yeah.
And we're like, yeah, praising him, blah, blah, blah. So he's using his own money for everything. Mara, he moved to City because he was actually, he's smart. Like, he infiltrated CAF from the inside out. He saw the greedy people, he saw their weaknesses, their strengths. So he studied his takeover, and he forged a lot of relationships, business. As much as
but
the way
I want to stop there. I want to hold it there. Forged business. Couldn't we say that there's a little bit of mushiga shiga because Be-In is owned by Canal Plus, and Canal Plus is still a French company. And should this deal go through, this French company is going to run King Multichoice. Is that a good thing?
Mara, no, he won't run Multichoice. I get the laws prevent Be-In Canal Plus from running Multichoice. You understand?
They're doing it through the shell company.
Sorry?
They're doing it through the holding company.
Yeah, Maramuri bought the day-to-day running, it will still be majority South African. Or
Multi-choice, because the company will be majority South African, but the voting rights and things for the holding company could be Canal. I don't know how they're going to structure it, but that's why Canal Plus is doing this.
Yeah, Mara, even still, I don't think they're going to have majority besides Multichoice. I get it, he's going to be the majority owner. Unless you're referring to 31% that Canal Plus already has. Plus
No. I mean, I get it. Oh, I get it. They're doing that thing where he is going to be the majority shareholder of the holding company, but the rights and the board seats and decision making is probably going to be more evenly split. But because it's through the holding company still says majority and Tate Motsepe. So that's how they King Shiga they weigh in.
No, it's fine. But if the thing about Motsepe listens and he loves his country first, even though Ojabi Lamar he's back, even though Mufika Shika was in. One thing, all majority owner, if over there's no longer Moja Love, the French bar is gonna put our own stuff. For example, like you record then not because of his majority thing. And remember, this guy has 3 sons. Omo sport, the other ones are similar close to each. What if he got another one? So if anything that we as the public we don't like, and he listens to us, then he can veto his way of anything. That's why I like about this deal. So basically, the only person that we should be scared of is Motsepe, because legally, Ken not the only one who really makes the decisions, even though there's a CEO and a board.
Okay. Kuma, the PSL deal is coming up. Does this PSL deal put them in a tough decision when they come to negotiate with the SuperSport should the deal go through? Because, like I said, Tate Motsepe would be the majority shareholder of this company, but also the Motsepe Foundation and all of these things are basically running our football, especially at NFD and ABC Motsepe level, and also the monies that is given to SAFA and things like that. And again, indirectly, but we know how it works out. Does this put the PSL in a tough decision when it comes to negotiating the TV rights deal going forward? Because they're going to be negotiating with somebody who's so deeply entrenched in South African football, and especially because Dr. Ivan Khoza is leaving.
One thing Motsepe, he's a figure of stability, and he's liked across the board, especially by the West and white monopoly capitalists, I understand where you're going with this question, but on the same time, we have to admit, like, he's done a lot for our football grassroots through the Motsepe Foundation, including Banyana when there were some pay disputes, right? Obviously, when the PSL and Motsepe have to negotiate this deal, they're gonna have to tread carefully, because what if I cannot and the league below again, but I don't think he will. But on the other hand, I give him, he knows what a multi-choice it's sports. The majority watch football. Yeah. So he's gonna give us his and happy. He's perfect because of he has a club with PSL, NFD, the league before ABC, one. So he knows the ins and outs. So he knows the challenges. And I think because he knows the good and the bad, I think he's gonna improve it. I get now clubs that are threatening to close down, i.e. Royal AM, Swallows. I think he's gonna increase the grant that people are getting, and maybe also establish a professional league for the women's, and also increase the grant throughout through grassroots. This guy during his tenure as CAF president, like, it's unheard of. I don't think Europe or any other continent where school teams actually compete each other on the continent. And before that, autonomy like in South Africa, where they win 1 million rands as a prize. Like NFD never say great idea. So now autonomy like area school teams competing more CAF, more Africa, including the ladies as well. Mara, I can see he's got way too much power to negotiate. Mara, I think get power because it's going to give us more money.
Or maybe I should ask it from the different angle. Maybe I'm not, maybe let me say I'm not too worried about Motsepe's side of this, but I'm more worried about the PSL side of these negotiations, because the PSL likes easy things. And I'm worried that they're going to go into this negotiation and not be as hard as they should be with a super sport. Or even to the point where being as hard as to go out and go seek other possible broadcast partners, right? Does this pose a problem for the PSL itself? Because one, the PSL just go, Motsepe is here, why do anything more and maybe stop their own progress?
Yes and no. I don't think they're gonna stop their own progress, ne? In terms of like even now when we just before I came on the show, I read an article or that bring a short version of VAR the area offside to track or the offside or not. But Motsepe has always been innovative. He likes best technologies and stuff. But also, if the guys Papo PSL are smart, they can use Motsepe to actually exploit more money from him or get another like Sky Bet or Sky Bet or the other one in UK, BT Sports. But as a bargaining tool, no, Motsepe offered us 100 mil, for instance. And you know how Motsepe and his company, Super Sport, relies, I get the club, there are the Multichoice, relies on the PSL because commercially get the best one in Africa. So it can start a bidding war. It's bidding war, then we can actually get more money, more football. But on the other hand, on the flip side of coin, no one wants to sponsor a league. The people that can actually help us, like that guy, Bargeman, or the richest man, or Stellenbosch, Buruped. He's my buddy. So I'm gonna go boss. Osakena, mone. I wanna make money. Your friends happy. More open because I want to be the only one sole bidder, so I can exploit these people up here said. So right now we're gonna have to see. So we can't judge someone who hasn't done anything but we have to be wary. That's natural.
Let me bring in Malooms. Malooms, welcome to the show. How are you?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you perfectly, Malooms. How are you doing?
I'm okay, Tim. All right, OT.
I'm good. Can I first get your general thoughts about this deal that Dr. Motsepe is about to enter into, where he's going to basically be a big say in Multichoice?
Well, I think it will be a good thing because the reason why is let's look first at the track record of the guy when it comes to television deals. Remember when we went to the
AFCON
Cup of Nations.
Yeah.
We had the AFCON. We had only one deal with the French TV station.
Yeah.
And that was draining a lot of money from CAF. Motsepe came, restructured the whole deal. And you remember the revenue that CAF ended up getting. They are estimating now at almost more than 1.5 billion, more than what was expected.
Yeah.
Remember the viewership of the competition before Motsepe was there. It was in a region of 200 million viewers worldwide. The guy came in and the viewership ballooned to almost more than 1 billion viewers. Remember the TV channels that came in and to say we want a stake in this.
Yeah.
That caused the revenue for CAF. Remember the fact that when Motsepe took over, that CAF was in a serious financial troubles. They were reporting losses. Immediately when you went in and started restructuring the deals, the money for the prize money for CAF competitions has gone up. Now, if you exclude Motsepe on any deal that has to do with television locally, and this is a guy who has shown himself the track record, don't you think you're going to disadvantage yourself? Because the understanding or a normal rational person will be, this person is experienced in negotiating with these companies.
Yeah.
The other day we could not watch Banyana because of these shenanigans of the TV rights and everything. We missed the game in Nigeria. Don't you think if Motsepe is there, it will make a huge difference in terms of revenue for PSL, in terms of the increase in prize money for the clubs? And that's last but not least, OT. We are talking here about the president of CAF. who is not earning a salary. Motsepe hasn't earned a salary ever since he took over as the president of CAF.
Yeah.
He's using his own private jet for the businesses of CAF. He's donating his salaries not only in South Africa but to the villages across Africa. But you want to put this guy and crucify this guy for what he has done. I think it will be a good thing that they will draw in Motsepe to say, please take the forefront in negotiating these deals.
But then at the same time, Malums, at the same time, the company that he kicked out, Be In Sports, this is the company, the same company that he's partnering with. So can we trust the intentions of that company? Number one, because they already own the 31% of a Multichoice. And then secondly, when you look at South African football as a whole, and maybe this is not a criticism of Motsepe, but we know what our PSL is like. We know that TV deals and things are coming up right now. Will this type of move make them too comfortable to try and rock the boat, let's say? So they're going to look at it and go, hey, yes, then guys, he's bailed out in terms of the third division, the second division. He's bailed us out a few times when it comes to money things that were needed, SAFA-wise. He's done all these things. Now he's running Multichoice. Would that take away their appetite to want to go and negotiate harder for better, for better? Or would they just come in and go, hey, Motsepe is here, let's go. And it's not necessarily criticizing him.
No, Chief Ne, you see, the way I look at this is, I always look at the benefit of PSL and South African football as a whole.
Yeah.
If Motsepe, I'm going to make an example. Let's say Motsepe can negotiate a deal where we end up seeing the PSL price for the league from 50 million to 50 million. That would be a good thing. If PSL on their own could not have negotiated.
Guys, please mute when you come in. Please mute when you come in. Sorry about that.
If PSL cannot negotiate a better deal, if PSL is saying, you know what, we lack experience in these things, we don't have people who are, because mind you, they've negotiated these deals before, that end of the day gives them less revenue.
Yeah.
But if you've got an experienced person who can say, listen, I might not be there personally, but my people will be there. And I think the guy is intelligent enough to say where a company is going to misuse and is not trustworthy, he don't want his good name to be associated with that company. Yeah. The reason why now you see a whole host of companies worldwide, TV stations, trying to associate themselves with CAF is because they are seeing a credible man at the helm to say, this guy we can trust. This guy has got a backing. We know we can't fail. If I'm PSL and I've got a guy like that who can negotiate a better deal, imagine next year if PSL's first prize is 40 million. Imagine next year if the Motsepe league is no longer there, but it is being sponsored by PSL directly. You understand? So for me, I think I would rather take a person that I know that is going to negotiate a better deal for me than to go myself and negotiate a deal where I'm not going to get anything at the end of the day.
Okay. No, my looms are here. Let me bring in to PK.
Sorry,
PK.
just to make... Sorry.
Yes, Kumo.
Sorry, my question, is it going into power with, into bed with Bein Sports or Canal Plus?
Canal Plus owns Bein Sports. Canal Plus owns Bein Sports.
Oh, okay. No, I understand.
So
Thanks.
it's the equivalent of Multichoice and Supersport. So Canal Plus is the Multichoice for Bein, basically.
Okay, thanks.
Let me go to PK. PK, welcome to the show. How are you, my brother?
Hey, OT, I'm good. How's it, bro? And everyone in the panel?
I'm good. PK, I'm going to start off by asking you, what are your general thoughts about this proposed deal that Motsepe is entering into?
Firstly, let me start by saying we appreciate the leadership that is emerging in Africa for the betterment of football.
Yeah.
I think this is a great deal, mainly because, look, the Motsepe family have done a lot from a lower division where there was no sponsorship and they came to board, right? Motsepe Foundation. Not only that, but they have portrayed a wonderful or rather an excellent kind of leadership. And that leadership is not a selfish leadership from perspective of we want only Sundowns to thrive. I will count few points. Look, Ivan Khoza is old now, right? In a few years, he will be retiring. The question is, who will take the PSL to another level? What is it that is going to challenge PSL football clubs to honestly participate in a level where it can reach African? Like you can see the progression of this fourth leader that he introduces AFL. Not only now is gonna be 16 teams or whatever teams, right? Other teams in the PSL, they will have an opportunity to participate and taste this competitive league outside of the PSL, which is a good thing. So him buying this multi-choice rights, I don't think he is coming with a blank mind to say, okay, I'm gonna buy it for the sake of owning it. But it's in a matter of saying, okay, how do I make? Look, OT, we have cried about televising other games which were unable for us to see them, right? We will cry. For example, why isn't Banyana games taken into so much consideration, whereas they are playing for a country? That's one fact. If we are not even aware, I'm talking about marketing, right? But we have seen the imaging of Sundowns coming in the marketing. People can laugh and say, yeah, you want to fill the stadium. But Sundowns is doing great in marketing to say, okay, fine. Yeah, we are building. It's gaining momentum to say, okay, when we are playing these big teams, whereby already they are in a driving wheel. We know that when Sundowns goes to Cairo, the stadium will be full. We know when Sundowns is playing those big clubs, the stadium will be full. What is the problem about Sundowns playing and we are not there? And Motsepe have seen that thing. People can go and mock him, but this guy, out of being biased, out of being a kind of control freak, he is building this momentum to grow interest within us. And the honest truth, OT, is that look how our rugby nation in a marketing fraternity is being supported, whether you like it or not. When the rugby is playing, you will see, you will feel it, you will be forced to see what is going on, because this thing is psychological. It's a submarine thing. Whenever you go, you see they made it even a culture to say we can wear the Springbok thing on Fridays just to show support. But what does Pirates, Chiefs, and Sundowns, and I'm speaking from the perspective of bigger teams in South Africa, what do they do to entice us to buy into this idea of doing supporting them in certain ways? The culture of us not standing with one another, and the culture of thinking that when Motsepe buys something, he's gonna own it, he's gonna be captured. This guy is very clear about his leadership. For once, people, Motsepe came and he's making it intentionally to say, I want football to grow. He was able to bring even the FIFA president to say, come and see Africa. Let Africa be seen by other countries for who we are. Look how we are growing, and it cannot be this thing of we are fighting locally. We must go out and challenge teams outside to fight. And I think these discussions that Motsepe is doing, it will bring sponsorship. This guy have done tremendously work concerning CAF, as Malums have quoted, to say he brought revenues African-wide. Why don't you start at home? And now he want to bring it home. And let us be objective rather than being subjective to our thoughts and our argument about him buying Multichoice. It is of good. I believe it will be of good. I believe it will benefit us generally.
Do you know what my fear is, PK? My fear, and it is not to say that he's not doing great work, and it's not to say that my fear lies with him. My fear lies with the future. And why I'm scared is that if you have Tate Motsepe with a huge imprint on PSL, with a huge imprint on the broadcasting, with a huge imprint on Africa, with a huge imprint on all of these things, are we not setting ourselves up to create another Ivan Khoza, Kaizer type of thing where everything runs through them, right? And I know it's going to be at a smaller level, but Dr. Ivan Khoza has done massive good for the PSL. But now there is time for him to step aside. And probably at the time, they didn't think there would come a point where Dr. Ivan Khoza would have to leave. Are we not creating the same situation where there might come a point in the future where we look at it and we go, maybe Dr. Patrice Motsepe, you've done incredible work, but someone needs to come in. And the amount, the load that will have to be taken on, Motsepe Foundation leagues, the two of them, Multichoice, sponsors, everything we're speaking about now, it's going to be so much harder for somebody else to come in. Are we not creating those type of issues besides Motsepe being such a great person?
All right, that's a good question, OT. Now let's digest it. Now, look Motsepe's leadership. Motsepe took Sundowns as a president. Let's engage for how long? One thing that I believe.
Oh, PK?
That I believe. Can you hear me?
Just say that again. Just say that again. You cut there for a little bit.
Okay. All right, no problem. I said one thing about Motsepe in his leadership that we can trace is that he puts money and delegate. That's what he does. Look his involvement on how he ran Mamelodi Sundowns. He is no longer there, but his son Kopi is taking over. As much as he is sponsoring the lower division, have you ever seen him involved to a point that you feel his presence, that I am the one who is sponsoring this thing? And I am telling you, without the benefit of a doubt, OT, to say once he buys this rights, you will even not notice his presence or his contribution to say he is influencing certain things in a certain manner. That's the kind of a leadership he delegates. He has proven himself, and he has proven himself through the team. We have seen the kind of, you see, in Mamelodi Sundowns structure and let me say management, you won't see Kopi interfering with Rulani's work or so. The leadership perspective and the kind of delegation that they are doing for other people to take control and lead. And always you will hear Rulani say, I would like to thank the Motsepe family that whenever we need what, they will be able in assistance. But you will never see them participating. Right? I don't have a fear with a leader who is able to grow other leaders and groom them in a way of success, in a way. Look how Motsepe is so quiet about the issue of what is this issue? The issue of young. You will think that he is not even there. He is delegating the work, and that's kind of leadership that we want. But on contrary, go to Kaizer Chiefs. You will feel who is in control. You will feel the presence of I am in charge. Something that you will never feel in Mamelodi Sundowns. And that's the difference. I don't want to speak on behalf of Khoza. Khoza have shown a kind of leadership in terms of saying, this is your team. It's a communal thing. Because I have that thing, but at the same time, you can feel his presence to say, okay, he is there, but he's not there, right? You can feel it. Unlike Motsepe, I believe the kind of leadership have proved itself. He knows how to delegate the work. He knows how to officiate and lead people in a certain way of, I want to direct you in a certain way. Already, CAF have taken a direction. We can see the direction that CAF is taking. And that's a good direction. Yeah.
Let me bring in Mto. Mto, welcome to the show, my brother. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, Mr. And how's the whole panel?
I'm good. Tell me, Mto, Motsepe owning Multichoice. What do you think of that move?
Okay, there's one part that I think we missed. I remember hearing a bit about it. So apparently, company regulations in SA don't allow a foreign entity to own more than 20% of voting rights in a broadcasting company. Therefore, therein lied the opportunity for Motsepe to come in. Yeah, but because I think the canal wanted to do a complete takeover now. Because I think they met the threshold of 35% or something to
there was a mandatory,
yeah. So now, because of that, I mean, they had to now find a local guy who was willing to partner with them. And surprise, Motsepe is the one who's coming in. So for me, okay, for the first part, the administrative part in terms of the regulations, okay, it makes sense for a local guy to come in. But the fact that it's Motsepe, it has both good and bad, I don't know how to put it, but implications here, you know. Let's start with the bad. The bad could be conflict of interest. For example, you were mentioning it also. We know what happened when Bein was in charge of broadcasting in African football. I mean, they made a mess of African football. It was not interesting. It wasn't even packaged correctly. Now under Motsepe, we're starting to see African football becoming more interesting, even from a commentator's point of view. I'm just talking about a simple thing like commentators. They went in and brought in guys who have won in AFCON. There was that guy from Zambia, I forgot his name, Mulenga. Yeah, Mulenga was part of the commentating group. Some people who knew exactly who the people were playing. I remember watching an AFCON in the past where I felt like the commentators were so far withdrawn from who the players were. Yeah, so that is what makes the tournament more interesting now for me than before. So when you bring in the right people into the broadcasting space, that can happen. So with him now going into partnership with Canal Plus, it could maybe now make more sense of the fact that he said, I think he did say that there was a door for him to come back into having a CAF right. Maybe that was the reason why, because he knew he was going to go into
just didn't say it was his door.
Yeah, one. So that's the bad part, but the good part also out of this deal, I mean, we saw how Multichoice was we almost didn't even broadcast the AFCON. Yeah, but so chances are, with such a deal and obviously with that open door now for Canal Plus and whatever the subsidiaries who are involved in African football, chances are Multichoice will always be able to broadcast the African football. And remember, it's present in most African countries. In most African countries, I remember. I think one of the Champions League games, Tanzania was actually broadcast very by Multichoice, but from that side. So you see, so that opens a lot of opportunities for African football. Now we're gonna have much more coverage than we did before, because if you are marrying the two, one of the former players and one who's potentially going to be a player for the longest time in African football, it can only be good for everybody. You know, for everybody. So I think in terms of the presence of influence Motsepe on this deal, it's gonna definitely benefit us the fans more. So, but yeah, and again, um, I think Motsepe has made his mind up about his interest in football. He's going all in. That's what I'm saying. He's there. So if there's a slight opportunity, he's not going to miss out. So that's what I'm saying. And I don't know if he's setting himself up in case some heads turn on him. He's sorted here, but I think he's in. He seems like somebody who's so invested because he's doing a lot of good. So, but again, we have to worry about his legacy. After Motsepe, nobody's going to lead the same way. Nobody's going to lead the same way. That's the challenge again. We're going to see that when whoever takes over from Dr. Ivan Khoza, hopefully it's not going to be too much of a transition for that person, and we're still going to see some good things for APSL, which we always rave about PSL being right up there in terms of the commercial deals and all of that. That must not drop. So hopefully with CAF, Nagahambo Motsepe na trophy, and I mean personally I can't complain much because I can say a benefit for me. We almost watched AFCON SABC guys. Now it's gonna guarantee that we're gonna be sorted in terms of that.
But then, are we not creating another Ivan Khoza type situation? And I mean it in the sense that Ivan Khoza was very good for the football. And I think what happened was that everybody just went, you know what, Ivan, Ivan, Iran. You run it, you do what you need to do. We will follow you to the ends of the earth. We've heard multiple owners in the PSL saying that. Are we not creating a similar type of situation with Untate Motsepe where he holds so much of African football that we might not be able to see it now, as I am sure back then they couldn't see it, a problem with it with Dr. Ivan Khoza. But at a time when he needs to move around, or at the time that maybe, and I'm not saying it would happen, but maybe Motsepe Foundation or Motsepe, the whole structure is not doing for the good. Would it be too hard to remove that type of power? Are we? I don't know if you get what I'm saying.
No, I get what you mean because it's sort of like almost like there's a monopoly of how football is being run. You know, there's one powerful, and then just a few of his friends around, and then that's what. Yeah, but at the same time, let's be fair. I mean, people like Dr. Ivan Khoza no Motsepe, they are proper opportunists. Yeah, because I once heard of the story of how he got involved with the Pirates. He took an opportunity that was presented to him because some other person was not running the Pirates the proper way. That's how it started, and then I guess he saw the opportunity even when it came to professionalizing our local game. So you can't blame him for that. And well, if he put in the work and now this thing is so big and everyone wants to come in, it's gonna be difficult to just let go of it. But I kind of understand also how it happened that he became so powerful. And it's the same thing now that's happening with African football. For the longest time under Issa Hayatou, African football was not attractive. And then they changed to that guy from Madagascar. It was still but now under Motsepe, all of a sudden we think, you know what, it's the best thing. I'm just thinking about the many reviews that this AFCON had, positive reviews that this AFCON had. That just shows it is someone who can probably lead African. So for me, I can't complain about the power that we're going to give to Motsepe when I've seen what the power we've given to Issa Hayatou has done for African football. It hasn't done anything for African football. Why not give it to someone who's going to really do something for African football? So it's weighing between the two. I would choose Motsepe over another reign of Issa Hayatou, because if you remove someone who's like Motsepe, who are we putting in to drive African football forward? That's the question.
And that's my question, because it's not to say that he's bad, guys. I'm not saying that he's going to be bad or he's going to be corrupt or he's going to be whatever. I'm just saying that don't we need safeguards in order to make sure that in the event that either he's no longer the guy or he's no longer able to do what he does, or even if it was an event where he just decides, hey guys, I want to leave football now, or I'm taking my resources and everything with me, I'm scared that you're going to be sitting with a situation like the PSL. The PSL was great in the beginning. Everybody's getting money. There were deals that were negotiated. Dr. Ivan Khoza has done the work, the best work. Now it's time for him to step aside. And it's not him saying that, my power. It's other people are going, yes, sis, what are we going to do now? You know, like, how are we going to... The reports are saying that everybody's going crazy. And the type of gap that you'd need to replace should Ntate Motsepe leave. You get what I mean? Are we not creating one of those, a power vacuum? And it's not to say that he's bad, but for the future.
No, it's true. And for me, personally, you know, I always think there is no continuation in administration in a way. You're gonna, whether it's a football administration or political or whatever, there's no continuation. I wish there would be some deputy that could just take over after he is gone, who is there now, who's seeing everything, how it's run, how it's structured, how it's done. But it's not going to happen like that. There's someone who's going to, there's a Tepo or a Mto who's going to mushroom from somewhere and campaign and say, I can do this better, and then start again. So it's always going to be that kind of thing unless we have some sort of continuity. So unfortunately, he has no control over what happens after he leaves. So we can just worry about what happens when he is there. Because really, even with Ivan, because as much as we are going to be worried about, but football will still go on. We will find our feet again, even if we fall a bit here and there. But I think I have faith in the systems, PSL, that perhaps maybe it won't be as bad as we think it will be. So again, it's a difficult one. We can't predict how it's going to turn out after Motsepe's tenure. Maybe he sorted out the systems. The systems are going to be now in place to do things the right way. We don't know. You see? So hopefully that's going to be the case. But knowing the way it has gone for the past, I don't know how many years in African football, someone is going to come and say, we need to change this thing and go this direction. That's probably what's going to happen. So we'll see.
Okay. Let me bring you. Tabo, welcome. How are you?
Yeah, good, my man. How are you?
I'm good, Tabo. First thing I'm going to ask you, what are your general thoughts about this deal? Ntate Motsepe taking over Multichoice?
I think it's good for African football in general. Broadcasting rights. The monopolizing of broadcasting rights in African football from France will end. So I think it's very good. But on the other hand, him leaving CAF, I'm not sure, but he's done well for in his first term. So I think him doing well and leaving CAF in the state that it is in, it is good for him. His name will be there as one of the best people who ran CAF in a good time. So leaving now, it's good for him, and then it's good for African football broadcasting rights. So him buying Multichoice is good for African football and South African football. So I think he should leave now before there can be things that he's monopolizing African football, he's dictating African football, like the history, like Issa Hayatou. Remember, Issa Hayatou stayed for a long time in CAF that he did deals with French companies and where his son was involved. So I think it's good for Mr. Dr. Motsepe to leave CAF after he's done so well.
But Tabo, are you worried then with the point you just made? Because this Multichoice deal is in partnership with those same French companies. Do you think that that changes anything?
I don't think it will change that much because he will be a majority shareholder. So in terms of making decisions, he will be able to make decisions that is favoring African football. So I don't think it's worrying at all.
Okay,
So
okay.
it's good for him to buy Multichoice and then just concentrate on his business, and then if he leaves now, he will leave CAF in a good state. That wise, CAF is good. Just this previous AFCON, it was the best. It was the best in a long time. So it's good for him. It's good for African football. So we don't want the situation like you said of Dr. Ivan Khoza staying in PSL for a long time, where everything was run good. Now he's leaving. Everybody doesn't want Dr. Ivan Khoza to leave because they know he's a pillar of PSL. So he's good. What I wish and hope is that he has already trained his predecessor. Dr. Motsepe has already trained his successor to run CAF. So that's what I hope for and wish for.
Do you worry about concentration of power? And it's not necessarily to say that Motsepe won't do the right things, but do you worry that there might come a time where, maybe not through him doing bad, maybe you need to move on to the next thing? Do you worry at all that those dynamics might come into play here? And it might become a problem to try and fix all of that power.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, that it's good that he leaves now, because if he stays for long, then we're going to have a problem that after he leaves, we might say, no, Dr. Motsepe must not leave. He's done so well for CAF that he must not leave. There's no one who can run CAF like him. Or that, like Isaiah, he was corrupt. He finished CAF. So it's better he leaves now after he has done so well.
Sorry. Okay. No, I'm gonna come back, Tibo. Look, guys, I think what we have to understand about the structure of these deals usually, and I don't know how it's gonna work this one. How it usually works is that this holdings company is just made so that Canal Plus has a way into Multichoice on top of the shares that they have already. So Tate Motsepe is the majority shareholder of the holding company. But how they usually do it is that the board will either be 50-50, 60-40, where Canal Plus, should they be the ones who are fitting the bill, Canal Plus would be 60% voting. So the holding company going into Multichoice says ownership is Motsepe's, right? And it says that a South African is the majority holder of this company. But within that company, the voting might be not share-based. So when they do these mergers and acquisitions, that's what they usually do. Fine, Tsepo is an 80% shareholder, but of those shares, when we come to a board level, you've got 50, I've got 50. We're using you as a vehicle to come in. That's why I'm a bit worried. And when I speak about the Motsepe situation in terms of the power he holds, he's doing good now. Dr. Ivan Khoza was doing good at a point. The parallel I want to run is Dr. Ivan Khoza was doing very well at a point, to the point where everybody went, you know what, Dr. Ivan Khoza, figure out the sponsorships, figure out the TV deal, figure out all these things. And because he held that power and everybody was just like, yo, you are so amazing at this thing. Now time is for him to move over, and there's not enough people that are ready to take over that. And my fear is that we're doing the same thing at a grander scale, where Tate Motsepe is doing incredibly well, right? But 20 years from now, it might not be well enough anymore as we speak about Dr. Ivan. And replacing that power, or not replacing, stepping aside and bringing in people that can fill that vacuum is tough. So for example, I'll give you, yo, TikTok, really? I'll give you a simple example. Motsepe Foundation is funding ABC Motsepe League, Motsepe League, the NFD. They're also giving money to SAFA. They're also doing those things. Should Motsepe Foundation leave, right, or for whatever reason, or maybe they're not doing enough anymore, you now have 4 spaces to fill. And again, it's not to say that you're doing this because Motsepe is bad. You're doing certain things or putting in certain safeguards so that in future, you know, you don't sit with a vacuum. But again, I don't want to make this to say that Motsepe is bad. Kuma, I never got a chance to ask you and Malums the same question. Are you scared of any power vacuums and things like that coming into play when, you know, 20 years from now, something needs to change, and now we're sitting with a situation where Motsepe controls everything, and I'm not saying in a bad way. I hope you guys understand me.
Sorry, what's the question again?
When we're looking at the power that Motsepe would have through the Multichoice, the Motsepe Foundation, through all of those things, and I know we say he stepped aside and stuff, but he still has board seats and control in ways in those companies. Are we not creating another situation where we've given absolute power to somebody, and there'll come a time where that somebody needs to move, and they control so much that, you know, it becomes a very big task?
No, first of all, he doesn't have any board seats. He can't have any board seats, you know? But honestly, George, I'm gonna use an example of the municipalities, right?
Yes.
You know, in the past, the ANC used to have the majority of a city, country, even provincial level. And you know how it went. So when DA came, especially here in Tshwane, right? They're in something called coalition. Where one. So my point is that think of CAF as a coalition across the board. It's a mess because no one can agree to anything. Things cannot get approved. Budget can get approved to a point where we're here without street lights, potholes, etc. So now when you have one centralized power, so people can account from the mayorship or for CAF to the finances, to the people on the ground. So it's going to be easier to implement changes and make people accountable for who they spend and what of. One thing about this, about this whole takeover, from a business point of view, it's going to make him rich. At the point, he might actually propel him to even richer than
from Stellenbosch.
your white boys, you know? Yeah. But on the other hand, my brother, as I had said, one thing about Motsepe's company is he hardly runs them. If you can take Motembe, your Sanlam, it's impossible because he's got a huge portfolio under his belt. And I find he's the face. Everyone, when they think of or Ark, they think of Motsepe. But he's got people working there. And one thing that proved to us that this guy will be a great leader. I don't know for those who haven't arrived yet, particularly those Pirates fans who are going to come in and sing and make a lot of noise. Let me come back to that point. Motsepe could have easily given the rights to be in sports or super sport. Get the rights at CAF for them to broadcast the AFCON for the previous one and the next one and the WAFCON. He could have, he didn't have to give them to that company, Eleako, Tanzania, especially when they didn't even have enough funds. So he used his own company, Sanlam, to actually, I'm speculating here, to actually finance their bid. So your one it proves okay, sharp. It directly benefits him as a guarantor, interest, but overall, he can give other people a platform to shine. You get my point? So having this centralized power, it's something that we haven't had before, Mokefe. And let's give it a try and see what it's over here. And I wonder how it's gonna have a structure to it because he has a tendency of getting qualified people to run. We see Cheka Sundowns. Look at our sporting directors, our scouting heads, for how qualified and how sure they are. So that's why I think this will be a great thing for them. Now, if you're gonna compare Motsepe to Khoza, guys, let's give Khoza some credit. He's done great, but the challenges that he had when he came in, it was that no one could do what he did, what he did at that time. So that is why he could take the PSL so far. He's done great, Mara. And he's got some mafia tendencies, but we're not gonna go into speculations. Again, we respect our elders. And happy one thing, Kakefe. PSL, SAFA, and South Africans, we are nonchalant as a nation, so we don't care what goes on behind the stuff as long it doesn't directly benefit us. We're gonna become keyboard warriors and come on platforms and so Kumo all the time that we like. Marawa Cafe, it's tough. The Arabs, first of all, they're already criticizing Motsepe's work. So do you think, Corin, they're gonna give him a chance, or his successors? I want a chance to be layman. Because they're looking for things to get him out. The West Africans say they're gonna challenge him on the basis because he's South African. You understand? The same goes for the
but to be fair, he's what, Multichoice Supersport is the third or fourth largest rights holders are going to be going, and that's Multichoice, are going to be in a deal, outright. Canal Plus is one of the, I think it's maybe second or fourth in terms of rights. I don't think the Arabs can say anything because that control comes from Europe. The be-in that they love is Canal Plus, and now it's also Multichoice. I don't think they would have a say, really, in this case.
Wait. Are you saying rights in terms of like African rights?
No, in terms of sports rights, Supersport is the third highest global buyer of rights, and now they're merging with a European. Well, they'll be fully controlled by a European entity. A company that has a European entity in it that is the fourth or third or something like that, biggest one as well. So now the guys who used to run your rights and the guys who want your rights now is the same people. I don't think the Arabs would be able to say anything.
No. I was referring to the CAF succession shape. Mara, and when you also said right, I'm like, you making like when you do the rankings, like in terms of who's bigger. I thought you were talking about continental. I was going to say no. Supersport get number one, number two get, and the other one get the one who has the rights. But okay, are done. So yeah, I was referring to the structures. It's going to be difficult for anyone, especially you know how we are, Mosaga. If you like, for instance, I've got issues with Nigerians for my reasons. I get what you say. So if someone from there gets there, and ascends to the throne of CAF, I'm gonna like be critical of him, and if he does anything wrong, we're gonna find ways to try and move him. And the same goes for Motsepe. That's why I was mentioning the Arabs and the East and West Africans right now. How do you know when South Africans or Saudi countries are doing better? Those guys can't sleep, ne? And why eating, bruh? How khoza like PSL cafe get different beasts, yeah? Come on, man. So it's gonna be difficult to be complacent.
Malums, I never got to ask you that question. What do you think of this power thing? Are we just creating another chance? And again, it's not a criticism of Motsepe, it's the structure. Are we creating another chance for a big power vacuum to be created should Motsepe leave, or should there need to be changes made?
Of course, you are, Chief. There is no doubt about that. We, as you correctly said, if he decides to leave at any time, who's going to fill in the shoes of the money was pouring into the PSL? That is always a fear. But then we look at the alternatives. let's look, for instance, into this a deal. What are the alternatives? The company already owns about 35% of Multichoice. The only now the last 15% to own it total outright. Now you've got a situation where the sporting rights in South Africa are controlled in France. I'm not trying to do some sort of a blanket punishment, but if you have looked into what is happening in North Africa, those countries, what they are suffering in terms of what the French companies are doing in those countries. Are we really as South Africans now, never mind sport, are we really as South Africans now willing to trust a French company to be the sole owner of a South African company? Because mind you, it's not only about sport. This will also goes to politics. This is the media company that we are talking about. We can influence anything from our politics, anything from our economy. So for me, on one hand, yes, I'm glad that Motsepe is part of this deal because it would have been more good for South Africans if more billionaires were to join hands and take over Multichoice as South Africans, rather than to have a French company owning a South African company, and they can. You've seen in other countries. If you control the media, you virtually control everything that's going on in that country. The outcomes of elections are 60% controlled by media. So if we let this company on their own, like you have correctly said, I don't think that they will have a majority in terms of voting rights, in terms of the board rights, but they will only own majority of the shares. Which, if the deal is structured in that way, it is also good. If there are any other billionaires in South Africa or even in Africa who are willing to put up their hands and say, you know what, I also want to join, I will also welcome that. Not only for that in Motsepe, but also for that. And your question that you asked, the second question is to what happens when he leaves. I'm worried because the similar question you asked was put to him about 2 months ago when he was here. To say, what happens when you leave? And he was saying it is also something that he's working towards now, because actually the question was, do you intend to run again for the second term?
Yeah.
And his answer was, my priority now is to make sure that I get capable people who can take over when I'm no longer there. Now it shows a person now who's thinking much into the positive future than the doomed future. So yes, it's always okay fear when the person who's got all the power leaves and there's a vacuum, and then all sort of disruptions will happen. But if I look into the alternatives, what the alternative is, if this company owns Multichoice all on their own, our fate as South Africans and our interest as South Africans, because mind you, if you've got a person there, South African, maybe because he's promising with this deal, he actually came out and said it's going to be a good thing for South Africans because his main target is to make sure that the most opportunities goes to South Africa. So we was someone who's also there to make sure that at least you get something out of this. But reality, the alternative, I don't even want to think about what happens if they are only owning this thing on their own.
Okay. So I'm going to come back to you. I just want to get Malume Kutso in and Lebza in. Malume Kutso, welcome to the show. How are you? Malume Kutso, right. Tell me, before I jump you in, I first want to hear your general thoughts about this deal that Motsepe and Canal Plus are entering into to buy a Multichoice. I'm trying to answer the question that I want to ask you.
No, you can go for it, Aputkutu.
No, Mr. Uchi, I'm very uncomfortable. And this is not a Sundowns Pirates topic. It's I like how you are really trying to drive home that you have nothing against Mr. Motsepe or Dr. Motsepe, but you are just concerned that so many, getting your fingers in so many pies that would ultimately give you rain over everything, how will it affect other sponsors? I understand, Mr. Oti. How will, like for example, for me, young too, bafana a super sport after having taken away what super sport had over care for the longest time. Did they do it to give their returns so that they could take super sport on the low low? Was it really for us, or we really pawns within everything that was actually happening in the bigger scheme of things? And if that's the case, this is a big if. Will that trend not continue with other sponsors in the league? Will we not, at the end of the day, have something like Motsepe Pirates and Motsepe Chiefs and Motsepe Sundowns? Because let's not forget.
Malumukus, just expand on that point. I want you to stick on that point. When you say, are you saying, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, are you saying that if you look at it, some of these moves were engineered with an end goal in mind?
From long ago, I'm just saying, it looks, not that it is, it looks dodgy. It looks, dodgy is not the right term. It looks questionable with you. Why was Supersport suddenly stripped of this monopoly that they somewhat had? That to a point where they struggled to get a deal, to a point where they were actually considering not bidding, but also so with they needed that viewership and took a deal they would not necessarily take. And
Wait,
for
but
them
also
to take
a deal from where? Who gave who gave Supersport the rights?
But we understand. Ukuthi, somehow our players are. I'm just saying, some things are questionable to say. Lendo isuke kulabantu and suddenly you want to buy them out. You're not necessarily buying them out, but you want to buy them. Because nabo sebayabona ukuthi maybe what was their bread and butter. It just left as bread now. And you know which we pay to the basketball with you. Once you buy them, you will.
Oh no, Malumukusa, let me do this. I'll say it. I think say it and then I'll come back. We've been dancing around this. Guys, this is why the deal looks questionable. The deal looks questionable because Tate Motsepe becomes CAF president. His first port of call is to cancel the deal that BN had with CAF, right? So he came in and said, you know what, if you guys can't guarantee it, I'll guarantee it. Ne? Motsepe Foundation will come in and give CAF the money. If you guys don't want to do it, we want to open up. Ne? So a few months later, Canal Plus comes back and they renegotiate the deal with CAF, which now means that and Canal Plus own the international rights for African football. So New World TV owns African rights. They distribute African rights. Then New World TV is a new company that comes into being. It comes into being, which is guaranteed. So the loan, in order for them to compete with the rest of the broadcasters, was guaranteed by Sanlam, which means that a Motsepe company, which means that Sanlam holds their debtors. They're in debt to Sanlam, which is owned by Motsepe. So then they get the rights, right? They get the rights for that. Cool. They've got the rights for Africa. Supersport and Multichoice is then frozen out of the rights deal. Supersport couldn't get into the rights conversation of AFCON. There was a lot happening politically that side in CAF. But then they got the rights through who? The European guys who just so happened to own the international rights. They leased them basically to Supersport. Canal Plus owns 36% of Supersport. So now, when Tate Motsepe gets into a deal, the question becomes, did you engineer all of this so that you could get into Multichoice, right, through this. Because now the deal is the rest of Multichoice is going to be bought by a combination of Motsepe and Canal Plus in a holdings company that they created for both of them, right? So both of them hold this company that will own the rest of the shares in Multichoice. And the first part of the shares, the 36%, is already owned by Canal Plus. But then because Dr. Motsepe and Sanlam is a guarantor of New World, you could find a situation where New World defaults, quote unquote, on their loan, and then they could fall into the deal that has been made between Canal Plus, Multichoice, and Tate Motsepe, which then means that Canal Plus would own all of the rights in a way of broadcasting throughout the world, all African things. They would own Multichoice. They would also own the international rights and New World. So that is why the question is being brought up about this whole deal and how it worked out. Because if you look at it strategically, it's incredible what he did. But then the question is, how were all these pieces maneuvered? So I'll say it. And all I was doing was stating facts. This is what happened in order, and these are the entities and people that own. That's what I'm saying. You can draw any other conclusions from that, but the facts are this. Malume Khutso, you can continue.
Hey, so so all of this for me, like Mr. OT, makes me uncomfortable, right? And I've always said, OT, some things when done in government are extremely corrupt. I once told this other lady who I was in a transaction with, I was like, if you're doing what you're doing in government, people would bend tires because of what you're doing. But in private business, it should be an acceptable practice. You understand? But for me now, Dr. Mtiki, we put kahle Sundowns, we put kahle CAF. Akasiphathe kahle sonke, but I still feel with one day, just like Natasha Chiklas once alluded to, they owned it together, the Sundowns, but at some point, she felt with yeah, train and succumbed and sold her shares to Dr. Mtsepe. So I feel with even the other sponsors, let's just say for I don't know how these deals are structured. For argument's sake, one day they decide they're not going to broadcast any PSL games, knowing which one who have and all of that. What hit will the teams take in terms of sponsorship? Because mind you, they don't have that reach anymore. Will it then not open the door?
That's actually
Will
go on.
Will it not open the door then for some outrageous things that we see way? I know, I think with FIFA doesn't allow it, but actually they do, because I know there's New York. Will it not then open the door for Motsepe Pirates, Motsepe Chiefs, Motsepe Sundowns, all of this? Not am I making sense? But over to you, Mr.
That's not even, because my second question is, okay, we trust Motsepe. He's done well. His record says that he's done good. That's not the question. My question is, and I wanted to parallel it with Dr. Irvin Khoza in this sense, that when Dr. Irvin Khoza came in and they were doing all of these things for the league, they were doing everything. And everybody basically looked at Dr. Irvin Khoza and said, you know what, man, you're a great man. You're amazing. You are running these things. We're going to hand it over to you to go and take control of all of these things, because he was doing very good. Fast forward, 28 years later, we now sit here and we're saying, hey, Marantate Khoza, Ikare, you were great, but your time has passed, or maybe you're not as amazing as you used to be. It's time for fresh blood. And now everybody's shaking because Dr. Irvin Khoza has to leave, right? We don't know what's going to happen, who's going to come in, all of that stuff, but we know that he has to go. I use that example to then parallel it with the situation that we speak about with Dr. Patrice Motsepe. So right now, he's doing great. We're telling him to take everything. Can you figure out sponsorships? Can you figure out CAF? Can you figure out broadcasting? Can you figure out multi-choice? Can you figure out all those things? Rightfully so, because he's got the track record. But 20 years from now, maybe, and not even that he's bad or that he's evil, maybe we get to a point where we're sitting with Ivan Khoza where we go, hey, Mara, Dr. Patrice, it's not going forward, this thing. And you run everything, or at least your affiliates run everything. How do we bring in new people into those when the power gap is so huge? Are we not setting ourselves up for those type of things? And it doesn't have to be that Dr. Motsepe wakes up one day and he's evil. Maybe it's just, you know what, man, you had a good run, your 28 years were great, but now we need broadcasting to go to the next level. And we are scared that when you leave with the money, you leave with the structure, you leave with all those things that is barely holding on right now, but we know there's something new and there's not new people who can step in. I don't know if it makes sense, Manubekut.
Superhero has the assist, not superhero, but now, Ten Hag said an end of an era, but he was wrong. So an end of an era has come for Dr. Khoza, how he skillfully maneuvered during those days is somewhat, and I say this recklessly, irrelevant to today. And today it continues to Dr. Patrice. So if he owns everything in the future, how will we be able to afford a different captain when his ways are no longer relevant? We'll be at his mercy, Mr. Oti. But I'm full of political because you see, I'm a Pirates fan, Mr. Oti. And whatever I say will be taken out of context as from a hater. Whereas I really appreciate it, and he's showing us some great moves. Are we not going into a dark hole where it will be extremely difficult to swim out of? Once, I don't know, maybe if he gets tired, God forbid, if he perishes. We understand that, Mr. Whitson. So I'm full of because I'm also like you. I would love for him to sponsor me and also capture me as well.
No, guys, this is just, again, I'm not saying that he's bad and I'm not saying that he's evil. I'm not saying that the moves he's made are bad. I'm saying that if we're not careful, stories usually start like this. You know, we hear it in politics. He was a freedom fighter, he was this, he was that, he was that. And then for some reason, when you have to take the next step, guys, don't downplay. I think the reason why I'm trying to make these comparisons, don't downplay how amazing and new and all of that Dr. Ivan Khoza was when he stepped in. The TV deal that he created, and he actually flew to England and to Europe to go figure these things out and create this TV deal that we have right now and create the bidding wars and put in different clauses and all of that stuff. Guys, that was light years ahead of anybody, especially on the continent. Anybody. It had never been done before. It had never been seen. Nobody had thought of it. For example, one of the things that he had done, right? So what I'm trying to draw to is that step one is great, but should you not create structures and ways to make sure that at step 20, you are not still living off of the benevolence of the guy? So what scares me about what we're talking about, for example, with CAF, is that Dr. Patrice Motsepe said he's going to do 1 year and he's going to step aside. Great. Ne? We are still living off of him being a good guy and saying, okay, I will take it on and do the successors. I will take it on and do this. I will take it on. And I think where our structures, especially South Africa and Africa in a whole, fail is that you have a figurehead who by him running it, he's got all of this. You are telling it, he's telling you that, okay, I will pick these people, I will do that. And it's great, it's amazing. But what happens when he leaves? You get me? Shouldn't we be looking for structures that replenish themselves, rules that replenish themselves? Okay, the next CAF president, by rule, has to do 1, 2, and 3. Or are we, worst case scenario, creating a Danny Jordaan type of situation where he comes in, breath of fresh air, everybody loves him, but because there was so much power given to him, he could choose to wield it in a different way, and there'd be very little things to fight that, if that makes sense. So now it's very hard to fight Danny Jordaan. Why? Because when he had all this power, and that power, when he decided that he doesn't want to do for us anymore, was so big that now trying to fight a SAFA presidency right now is almost impossible. You get me? And it's not to say that Tate Motsepe will go that way, but is this not how Africans start doing? I'll give you an example again. Dr. Ivan Khoza is head of the PSL. He runs the PSL, is the chairperson. He makes the calls, he does all the sponsorships. In the English Premiership, it's an independent board of people that run the thing, that do the work. Should one of them misbehave, the governors of the league can then go, you're not the guy. But if it's Dr. Ivan Khoza and these people now, it's tough for them to take him out. But anyway, I don't want to get too long in the truth. Lebza, welcome to the show, my brother. How are you?
Yeah, man, I'm good. Yourself?
I'm great, thanks. Lebza, firstly, I just want to ask your general thoughts about this this takeover, or the buying of the rest of the shares.
I do not necessarily have a problem with that. What I have a problem with is ending up controlling the costing structure of us viewing football and all of the changing the financing model, and then we end up having to be between a rock and a hard place. Like comparatively, the prices for watching EPL on Bing versus watching on Supersport, they differ significantly. They're much more affordable on Supersport. You pay package for a whole lot of channels and you get access to that football. New ownership might change that whole structure.
So just to jump in, you're saying, like, for example, just to jump in there, you're saying, like, for example, with Sky Sports in England, where apparently it's really hard for English fans to watch English football because it's too expensive, but the rights have gone around the world, and it's profitable for the teams and the league.
Yes, 100%. That's exactly what I'm saying. I don't necessarily. And another thing that we need to take into account is that, like, Multichoice is the pride of South Africa. We pride ourselves with it. I've traveled to the likes of Kenya, to Rwanda and Tanzania. The sports that you watch there are on SuperSport, and it's a South African company. We pride ourselves with knowing that when you get there, you're seeing your a company from your own country, and you're seeing a familiar channels and all of that, you know. So now, I mean, things might remain the same, but it won't have that sense of pride that it's wholly ours, especially knowing that in as much as Mr. Motsepe is getting in on the ownership, the decision making still falls with the French, you know. So, but beyond that, I don't necessarily have a problem with it. I mean, it's we live in a capitalist world. The ones with money get to make the decisions. So, yeah, that's pretty much it on my side. I want to come back on the issue of succession.
Yes.
I think we need to look at what he has done. I mean, granted, it's his son, Patrice Motsepe, who he left in charge, but there were structures at Sundowns that were put in place to say, you handle this department, you handle this department, you handle this department, and people were trusted enough to handle their respective responsibilities. So I'm not necessarily worried about succession plans, because he's even taking the FIFA president to all these places and introducing different leaders to FIFA president to show that the structures in Africa capable enough of heading their respective FAs and growing African football. So I'm not too worried about that. I don't think he's too hungry for power. I see him as a person who allows people into his space so that they gain access to resources, to other people. I've learned a lot. Why does Lebohang's voice sound like Motsepe?
Maybe Patrice is listening to us. Patrice, why are you listening to us and not saying anything to us? Yeah, Dr. Motsepe.
Yeah, so I'm not too worried about succession. I think he's a man who has structures in place around him to make sure that things don't fall apart in his absence.
It's not necessarily his absence that I'm worried about. I'm more worried about, if you build these structures around a person, they're his structures. So, for example, let's look at Mamelodi Sundowns. Let's say tomorrow he decided that, you know what, Kloppy, we're taking this thing, we're selling it to somebody, and then we are leaving. And he leaves with the leadership, he leaves with the vision, he leaves with, you get what I mean? You know, what happens to Sundowns, for example? Yes, it will run and all of that stuff, cool. But how long do you keep hold of Fleming? How long do you keep hold of those things? How do you sort of guarantee that the next owner is going to care enough and is going to do those things? How long is it a going concern once he leaves? And it's not necessarily, my worry is not that, you know, he goes to CAF or he goes to Sundowns and builds a structure. Then he goes, okay, guys, I have to, for conflict of interest, I have to sit in the background, right? But my son is still there. My people are still there. What happens to the PSL, for example, if he decides, you know what, guys, the Motsepe Foundation as a whole, you know, or his family decides, as a whole, we're taking this out. That vacuum that's going to be left, you know, what happens to that? That's more what I'm worried about. Shouldn't we be creating systems and structures that make sure that those things we have learned from Dr. Motsepe are implemented by us? And I know it's a tough question to answer, but you get me.
Yeah, no, I do understand what you're saying. But I think whenever situations arise, there's a solution always comes about, because there can't be a solution when there's no problem. Right now, we might say, what happens when he leaves CAF? There's people capable of taking over from him. I mean, there's marketing departments, there's people pursuing coaching departments where they're setting up institutions of learning, of training coaches and of training referees, which is growing on that side. So there are structures in place, and when he, for some odd reason, needs to be replaced for one reason or the other, I think a solution will arise. Similarly, when Sundowns are needed to move from Abozola and whatnots, a solution came, and we found new owners. Today we continued the legacy of the beautiful football that we were playing. Not only that, we are dominating, we are winning, and we go from strength to strength. So I'm not necessarily, even in CAF, I'm not worried about him. He's setting up structures even. I mean, he's carving pathways for broadcasting rights, carving pathways for financing of Champions League and other competitions. And I don't think they will rely on him for a long period. Those structures will still be there, and there's structures around to carry those forward.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me just there's a comment I saw here. Lyrical Probe says it's like saying I'm not getting married today because what if she cheats tomorrow? No, I'm saying that you get married but you get a prenup. That's what I'm saying. So that if in the case that she does, you're covered. We see it in the country. And I don't want to get political, Lyrical Pope. I saw a lot of your comments there. I don't want to get political, but it's pretty much what happens in the country. And I think we struggle with setting up those boundaries strong enough that you're not necessarily hamstringing somebody from doing those things, but you are also making sure that as a going concern, you'll be able to survive and maybe learn. And I think I want to learn. So, okay, CAF, can we trust that when Motsepe is not there pushing the agenda as he's been, that you don't go back to CAF before Patrice Motsepe and 10 years before that and 15 years before that we've all been complaining about? You get me? When Danny Jordaan goes out, if you remember, we had a conversation about Ria Litwaba coming back and wanting to fight Danny Jordaan. And one of the comments I made was, I'm worried that Ria wants to come into the seat and nobody's talking about systematic changes that make sure that we don't have the chance of creating another Danny Jordaan. It's not to say that Motsepe is Danny Jordaan or that Motsepe will be bad, but it's to safeguard yourself that later on, because if Multichoice is owned by Motsepe and this French company, who have owned 36%, who own the international broadcasting rights of CAF, who now own a local broadcaster, what happens if they decide that something is different, or they decide that, you know what, guys, since we hold all of the rights right now, there's no need for competition. So Tate Motsepe can say something, they bring their 36%, they bring their holding of that thing, they bring the rights that they own overseas. What happens, as Ulebogang has said, that being in Europe is not necessarily the best. We actually have it very good in South Africa, if we're being 100% honest, with our multi-choices, with our super sports. We have it better than a lot of countries. But now we're going to allow those people to come in, and even if Tate Motsepe is there, they still have their shares from the beginning, completely owned, 30%. They will have a stake in this company. We don't know how much, even if it goes to 50-50, 60-40, they probably still have enough to move a certain way. Plus, they own the rights to everything else already. That's crazy. But anyway. Kumo, I'm looking at the time. Can you give me a closing statement for tonight? Oh, Kumo.
Yeah.
There we go.
I would think to make Tate Motsepe seem like the Antichrist, where everyone loves him. Then over time he changes and he shows you his horns and tail and his pitchfork. But let me tell you one thing about South Africans, we've got steps to prevent total tyranny. We've got this thing called competition tribunal. Like if you're gonna come here and have monopoly over something, or it also prevents people from actually having monopoly here in SA, like companies having monopoly over something. And remember, guys, as much as you think we're gonna have pay-per-view, like how beIN and BT Sports, Sky Sports is doing in Europe, Africa is a different market. I can't, even I will never pay to watch only Sundowns when Sundowns play. You want to reach Milford FC play against Chiefs so I can have a good chuckle at the end of the day. Those things, even though that have been done go Europe, it's gonna be difficult to implement them here. And the thing is, like, the majority of people who watch the PSL, it's us. And you know how unequal our society is. We wouldn't be able to watch or do whatever structures be in my try to. They can try to implement it, but they're gonna quickly find out that it doesn't work. Like for instance, CEO Lebo they watch illegal football via these dodgy lines sites. So I want, and already is eating in multi choices as a whole's profit. Even Mnet, people are subscribing to premium retrieve premium subscribers. I want, because there's sites where you can get those same shows that you watch. So guys, you have nothing to fear. And like Super Sport, its main function on making money. Get that idea, give sponsorship. And sponsorship sinyaka eyes on your platforms. You can't say I've got 3,000 subscribers about pay-per-view. So Kopela Herbalife, for instance, common sponsors I have. In fact, Okasmakali, because this guy Olakona level operating and giving things for free. Okamakala, are you gonna watch dstv for free for the whole year? That's something that might be implemented. So right now, KD fear mongering tactics. I understand who would have to be wary, but there's really nothing to fear. At the end of the day, consumers hold the power. So if this guy and his friends are doing nonsense, trust me, we're gonna find ways to boycott his platforms, and he won't have any customers. So his billions and his friends money investment that one is gonna go down the drain. That's all I'm saying. Let's give this guy a chance. And guys, what a masterful tactician he is. What business, and I'm like, yo, if this guy was my mentor, now I'm the guy that you should have been being afraid of. Or he's a good guy. I'm the devil that you think Motsepe is. Yo, if only. But anyway, thanks for the show, guys. Sharp.
There's some Kumo. Malums, can you give us the closing statements for tonight? Kumo.
OT, I'm afraid going forward for China's fans and supporters, the Sundowns, what's going to happen if this deal goes through? The banter and accusations that are going to come our way, we are never, it might be a good deal for Africa and South Africa, but for China's fans of Sundowns, it's really not going to be good, because I'm already seeing you are taking us in every angle that, yeah, you know, they are owning the TV rights and everything. That's why Chiefs is not playing, because they are owning everything. I'm just saying, we might get that come in the near future. But Chief, I always say, every leader it doesn't matter which part of the world you come from. For me, it doesn't matter. Every leader, especially in South Africa, if your first thoughts is the improvement of standard of living for Abantu, I'm all for that. If your first thought is to improve the current systems, I'm all for that. So if this deal, and I said before, I'm looking at the track record of the guy. Up to so far, you know how many billionaires by now should have had a black spot somewhere to say he's accused of this. Yeah. He is right now, up to now, the guy has never had a black spot. He has never been accused of anything.
Yeah.
So for me, I think this is a sort of a 1 in a million kind of a guy that you get. And for Tinas, the South Africans, first and foremost, we need to take full advantage of him while he's here. I understand what he fear is that what happens when he leaves, but as you say, we need maybe to have safeguards in place to say what happens when we leave. Because yes, you can leave, but leave only with your name. And all the resources will stay behind. I'm saying the question you posed earlier about PSL to say, look, we're going to allow you into this, provided on one condition that when you leave, It's like staying in a state house. If you stay in a state house and you build a garage, when you leave, the garage stays. You only leave. If you stay in a state house and you you decide to renovate, if you leave all the renovations. So, to your questions, maybe PSS to say, you know what, we'll allow you into this deal, but if you leave or your family leaves, whatever changes, the deal stays as it is. Only your name will leave. Thank you.
Okay. Let me go to Tomto. Closing statements for tonight.
Yeah, bafethu uMotsepe, you know sidlala umrabaraba uMotsepe udlala chess. Yeah, no, he's got us. He's got us. Yeah, but sidlala draft. Yeah, but hey, you know what? Let me start. Do you remember just Naba announcer AFL when they had to postpone our games at Sundowns? There was an interesting statement that Dr. Irvin Khoza made. Already it showed the influence that Motsepe has in the local game. He said that he had to convince the entire body of PSL to vote to postpone the game so that it doesn't affect the sponsorships of the league. I don't know if you remember. It's something along those lines. So having too much power can also have that conflict. I think you were right to raise these things so that we look at it. We're not saying that Motsepe is that guy. He's not that guy. He hasn't proven to be that guy, but we have to look at everything objectively. And then my last comment, let me just correct to PK because he doesn't know about Dr. Motaung, his involvement in the local game. Dr. Motaung was the one who created the professional ranks, who made sure there's a separation between amateur football and professional football in South Africa. So as much as a lot of the light is shining on Dr. Khoza, but Dr. Motaung was the one who made it more clear what is professional football and what is amateur football in SA. So he had a very big role in that. So and he's also very much respected in terms of his pulling power for sponsors and all of that. So you can rest assured he was involved in that as well. So I don't like when people hear a lot about Dr. Khoza and they don't know the impact that Dr. Motaung has also had and think that he hasn't done anything for SA football. Unfortunately, people, they don't like to read up about Dr. Motaung because it's not, the one thing that works against him is not like someone who likes the spotlight, likes to shine. But I've listened to Jomoson praise Dr. Motaung and I knew that this man has done a lot. And the kind of praise is not just to say he has done well for Kaizer Chiefs, but for South African football. So yeah, that's my closing comments.
Malubukutso, give me your closing comments for tonight.
Mara, hey, we must learn from the past, and we must be able to reflect, even when we are happy. We must protect ourselves, not only from bad people, but also from good people. Because if you ask our parents to narrate who Jacob is to them, it's very different from what someone who went to school in the 2000s will tell you. I understand. You ask certain people about this sort of the story that you got is very different from what those in this economy right now will tell. I understand. So let's be careful of creating people who will one day seek for concomitant acting. I understand. If you get it,
hey, Kenya ko political school, but it's fine.
But unlike Dr. Motaung, the other two doctors, guys, they cannot really be married to the teams. Yekani le nto le sikhuluma ngo-Ivan Khoza ucabanga ukuthi sikhuluma nge-Pirates or sikhuluma ngoTatempipe ucabanga ukuthi sikhuluma nge-Sundowns. To them, they actually packaged these teams. It's only Dr. Motaung who is synonymous with his team. Hence,
Kaizer Chiefs, Mamelodi Sundowns, Orlando Pirates, not Iron Duke Pirates and Patrice Motsepe Chiefs. Okay, Patrice Motsepe Sundowns. But please, thank you, Mr. Uti.
Okay, no, thank you, whatever good. So, Lebza, can you give me a closing statement for tonight?
Yeah. On my part, I'd like to say there really is no concern when it comes to succession plan. Everything will be resolved when it needs to be resolved. And I'm just concerned of what's going to happen to the fee structure of the broadcasts. But beyond that, I'm happy with everything. We live in a capitalist society. The highest bidder takes everything, so I can't really complain when it comes to that. So, but beyond that, I think football in South Africa is getting better because of people like Dr. Patrice Motsepe, not because he owns our team, but all the great that he has brought, all the structures that he has funded.
Yeah.
At the time where some divisions did not have funding and there was no plan to get funding for them, he came through and rescued them. And today we can proudly say we still have a second division, a third division, and all of that are well funded because he came in and rescued that part. So all in all, I think when the time is due, everything will be in place. We do have structures, just that of course they're not at the forefront at the moment, but we do have structures in place, I guess.
Okay. No, Lebza, thank you so much. Guys, all I'm saying there for me is this conversation was not necessarily about Dr. Motsepe. It wasn't to stop him from doing things. It wasn't to stop him from moving us forward. It wasn't to stop him and get rid of his leadership and do all of that stuff. This conversation was just a reminder that, you know, you don't build a bomb shelter hoping that a bomb is going to hit. You do it because maybe there's been bombs in the past, maybe there's been tornadoes in the past, so I need to create a shelter. So if there is a chance of that happening, we can survive, or we can thrive, or we can do well. I think the problem with African leadership more than anything is that everybody's relying on my benevolence. And everybody's relying on the leader being a good guy forever. And it's not that you can't be a good guy forever. And what I love the most about what Motsepe has done is whatever gains he's made, he's not taken from us. I think that is the greatest thing. In all of the moves that I laid out, that he went here and he did this, and you might question this and you might question that, at no point were we hurt by it, which is incredible. That he's figured out that I can build while not hurting people. I can build in a completely different direction. He's probably going to revert or get all his money back from this multi-choice thing. Nobody knew that when he bought Sundowns. And when he was putting all of the money that he's put into Sundowns and built his Sundowns and the leadership and all of that stuff, when everybody's looking at him and saying, you're stupid, we don't know Uti. He's 10 moves ahead, knowing that it's like Kavara. It's like Kavara 2025. Right? So I think I enjoy that about him. My concern is not about him necessarily. My concern is that once you make this a precedent, the next guy comes in and he runs CAF. And he feels as though CAF should move in a completely different direction. And we were so happy watching Dr. Patrice Motsepe move it in this way that we don't realize that he wielded power in a great way, but in the same token, somebody can wield power in the completely opposite direction. And we haven't created the safeguards because we were so happy smiling over here. When you sign a prenup or you create a prenuptial agreement, you're not saying that you hate your wife. or the girl that you love. You're not saying that you hate her. You're saying that, hey, I need to make sure that should anything happen, I'm not willfully blind. Lyrical Pope brought up a conversation about Chelsea. Chelsea is exactly what I'm talking about. You had a benevolent billionaire, Roman Abramovich, who came in and he had a leadership that made sure that that club was running. Look at what happened when he left. Look at what happened. And instead of creating club contingencies, they created contingencies for something else. For example, you know, Chelsea, the naming rights in Chelsea, the stadium and where it's located, is a completely separate contract to your ownership. So it doesn't matter who owns Chelsea Football Club. You cannot, I believe, you cannot rename it. That's a separate contract. Sorry, you cannot rename it, and you cannot move it out of London. You can move it within London, but you can't move it out of London or a specific part of London. That's a contingency to make sure that, okay, Roman might not care about moving your stadium, but the next owner who comes in, Todd Bowley, might be shooting from the hip and he's an American and he's excited. He can't do certain things. Those are the contingencies. So that's why I'm saying that, guys, when we do these things, as happy as we are, as amazing as Dr. Motsepe has been, he's been incredibly amazing. You don't make these things for Dr. Motsepe, because when Dr. Motsepe leaves, what stops Issa Hayato from stepping back in and Issa Hayato from stepping back in? What stops those type of things? And also, do you not get complacent? You know, the question I was asking about the PSL is based on complacency. It's easy to then make a phone call to Motsepe. Yeah. Dr. Motsepe, go Ziawa. Or whoever's running the Motsepe Foundation, go Ziawa, asna sponsor, and he does. And the fear is that in the interim time that he's been running this thing, nobody's developing the skills to go and get a sponsor when sponsors need to be called. The reason why the PSL is going crazy over Ivan Khoza is because now you're seeing that there's a lot of people that have been sitting in the background letting Dr. Ivan Khoza do everything. And now when they've been doing everything, the sponsor that has been dealing with Dr. Ivan is now going, yo guys, how can I trust that you guys are going to do the things? How can I trust you? And it's precisely because we didn't build these things. And plans will come and things will grow and we'll do all of that stuff. But that period, how damaging will that period be? When right now you should be putting in the safeguards to say, okay, fine, here's the clear succession plan. They've already been speaking to the sponsors. The sponsors are coming around. Nobody needs to shake. Nobody needs to be scared. Nobody needs to see all of these things. But we're going to be at the mercy of the benevolence of the next person that steps in. And if the next person that steps in is not Dr. Ivan Khoza, what happens then? If that person can't juggle all the things that he was juggling, what happens then? And imagine it at an ownership level. It's not necessarily because Tate Motsepe is like this. He runs a lot of things, or his structures and his people run a lot of things. A lot in our football. What happens when we lose that leadership? Over and above the fact that, you know, now beIN and Canal Plus, when they get this deal over the line, they'll basically run African football broadcast-wise for a very long time. I don't know if CAF is going to be able to come back and change those type of things if the new person comes in. But anyway, guys, it's not a conversation to bring down Tate Motsepe or to speak to Sundowns or whatever. It's just a conversation that we should have more of, where we say, when we're moving forward, are we moving forward happy and blind to some of the things that could happen? Are we ready for some of the things that could happen? Or are we just going, you know what, guys, hey, Kumo just said it now. If it was Kumo, he's the guy you should worry about. Imagine then Kumo takes charge tomorrow. And he's got the leeway to do whatever he wants. And you don't have in Tate Motsepe. But anyway, guys, I'm going to end it there. I'm gonna end it there. I'm gonna end it there, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you to those who commented and came in. This is what we do. We have those conversations on this here show. I don't think there's many places where you're gonna get conversations like this, or the fact that you can jump in, you know. So thank you guys so much for the support that you give me. If you have not followed, please follow. If you have not watched the stuff, please go and support the content that we put out. I promise you, it's not empty. I'm not asking you to do this out of the good of your heart. There's a lot of work that goes into those things, and a lot of conversations that can start from there. If you want to continue the conversation, because I want to hear from more of you guys, we have a WhatsApp group. Go on over to YouTube, click on subscribe, click on join, and then I can let you into the WhatsApp group, and we can further have these conversations and other conversations with other really smart people. It's not that I'm right. I'm not right all the time. I'm not right most of the time, right? But I am more happy to start the conversations so that we can also just start looking a lot deeper into our football. And if you want to do that a bit more, but Malume Kutso, Bo Agenti, Bo Kumo, everybody is in that group. You can join it. And yeah, tomorrow is going to be a 12:30 show. It is my breadwinners who are in that WhatsApp group. They will come in and they get to run the show. They pick the topic. They speak way more than I do in that thing, unless we get emotional and we banter each other. But guys, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for the likes. I didn't receive any gifts, guys, but it's fine. It's fine, guys. I'll see you guys then tomorrow at 12:30. Bye, guys. Thank you to everybody watching on YouTube. Guys, I haven't forgotten about you guys. Thank you for watching. Yeah, like I said, these are the conversations we have. So go subscribe, please.